Hello and welcome to Past Your Bedtime. My name's Bev. On the rear window of my car is a sticker. It shows a logo featuring an ear of wheat along with the letters RABI, which stands for the Royal Agricultural Benevolent Institution. Founded in 1860, the charity was created to support impoverished farmers. At a time when, following the Industrial Revolution, some farmers were experiencing a golden age in farming, with high production output and increased mechanisation, the sector still faced challenges on several fronts. International competition, tenant-landlord rights, devastating livestock diseases, rural depopulation, and harsh weather events. Sound familiar? I was only dimly aware of the charity when I peeled off the thin strip of paper and placed it on the back window. And I'll be honest, it was almost a piece of personal branding. It showed to others that I was in agriculture, part of the industry, one of the club. And I'm ashamed to say I gave it no more thought. Until today. I never expected to be talking to a farmer who'd experienced farming in almost Victorian era-like circumstances over the last few years. It's fair to say that Eden and her husband John have been to hell and back. Input costs, price-taking, and an underinsured barn fire would see this young couple unable to heat their home for 2 years, and at times face the stark decision of whether to feed their livestock or themselves, because both wasn't an option. Thanks to the RABI and a community of other farmers in their newfound home in Lancashire, financial support and business advice got them back on their feet. But it would be social media, of all things, that would see them go from breaking even to profitability when Eden decided to mention meat boxes to their growing audience on the internet. Whether diversification is just a necessary evil or the new normal for farming, it's clear that for one farming couple, finding a new route to market would be the shift that made a real tangible difference to the bottom line. And now with regular promotions, live streams, meat raffles, and other videos of life on the farm, a large body of content keeps interest in the business alive and no longer means wearing a bobble hat to bed. Apart from all that, Eden is just simply a joy to listen to. You join us as we talked about the business transformation over the past year. I think you've been on quite a journey the last 12 months, I guess.
Yeah, it's been pretty hectic, pretty full on, and continues to be so. Keeps us busy. But yeah, we changed the name from Lancashire Lamb Boxes to the Meat Box family at the beginning of May. And we're really worried how that would impact the business. And we thought maybe we would get a bit quieter, but we've got busier. So as if it was even possible, it actually turns out it is.
That's crazy. Well, it's lovely to see your smiling face, because I did catch one of your videos, and maybe it's the one that hit the big number. But I don't know, a couple of months ago where you basically said, this is my story, and many people don't know where I've come from, A to B. I'm interested that we replay that, in this conversation, because so many times when I've spoken to people about the diversification angle, on the one hand, it's not right that farmers should have to think about diversification. It should be enough that they're farmers and they're producing for domestic consumption. But it is what it is, and maybe that is the new era of the farming.
Just like some farmers probably didn't want to reduce the amount of horses that they kept, and they didn't want to have to. Unfortunately, we do have to move with the times. And if I can earn money from external sources like social media income and things like that, then I don't have to farm in such a corporate way. I don't have to get bigger. I can stay as I am. I can do what I do and still earn money to keep the farm going. Whereas most farms that stayed our size would really financially struggle, like we were before we diversified. We were really struggling. So we were getting £1.14 an hour for the work we were doing on the farm. It's nuts.
It's ridiculous.
No one wants to do that.
No, absolutely. Yeah,
so varied though. I feel like a lot of podcasts, it is quite heavy on the farming influencer side of things. I think that realistically, the people whose voices need to be heard the most are the people that are still farming full time in some respects that people have never heard of.
Yeah.
Like when we first started, nobody knew who we were, and we didn't set out to be an influencer, and we're certainly not. And not to say that we're not successful, but we're certainly not as successful as a lot of the other people that are out there that have been doing this for a really long time. I'm speaking to you, and all of that is off the back of LinkedIn in the space of what, a month, 5-6 weeks. It's ridiculous, really. But it does also just going to show that, I put a post up to say that I'm wanting to do more of that side of things because I'm really passionate about it. And as someone coming into farming as a first generation, like new entrant to farming, I think it's really valuable to hear other people's stories, and I'm just interested in it. Like, and whilst I potter about and do stuff, I love to have a podcast on. And I just find it so interesting. And I probably wouldn't have sat and had a conversation with whoever is on that podcast. However, I've listened to them and actually they're so interesting, but also I can use that bit in my business and I can, that makes sense. And it's, you always learn something. Always.
I've seen a lot of your videos and clips on Instagram particularly, and it's such a high energy, such a force field when you get on there. Do you have to rev yourself up to be in that mindset?
Some days, absolutely not at all. Sometimes I'm almost like trying to calm myself down. Like if I'm passionate about something, it's like exploding out of me. But if I am just like trying to like talk about something, my brain works a million miles an hour. So that's why like the energy can come out, and that is, that's there, and that's just kind of what it's like. But a lot of the time when I'm really trying hard to think about what I'm actually saying and making sure I'm saying it and articulating it as well as possible, it's really, really difficult. Yeah, on the live stream, sometimes I really have to pull that out of the bag and try and dig deep for them, because there'll be hours, it's hours of high energy. We have to it's in the evening as well. So I've just put my daughter to bed and we're all like getting ready to wind down for the evening. And then John and I are like, right, let's do a 2-hour live stream dressed up in fancy dress. We're like bouncing up and down because we're selling like raffle tickets, or doing we've got a free meat giveaway on the moment. And that's drawn on the 27th of June. So that will be a party live stream. And it will just absolute chaos and carnage, no doubt. But realistically, as soon as the camera's off, I'm like, I want to go to bed now. But yeah, for the video though, like my Ridgeline legging video, did you see
I love
that
one.
all?
I saw that this morning, actually.
Yeah, and everyone was like, you must have taken something. No, this is genuinely just me.
A girl can get excited about leggings, especially with 2 pockets. It's a game changer.
Exactly. And the Ridgeline shorts, which if it's too hot for my leggings and I wear my shorts, they've got zips in the pockets, and the pockets are way bigger than my phone. It's amazing. They are men's, but kind of everything.
But they're perfect to match your branding colours. So how cool is that? So why don't we start with how you got involved in farming? I think I read on one of your posts, technically your first generation in your family. So how did you get started in farming?
So yes, I am a first generation farmer, definitely. So my mum's a cleaner, my dad and a lot of my family work in the print trade, and my stepdad's in IT. So really nothing to do with agriculture.
Yeah.
But I've always wanted to work with animals. So I was always sort of, as I went through school, I did quite well academically to begin with. And everyone just suggested that I should either work in a veterinary practice or a zoo, because if you like animals and you do well at school, that's what people recommend to you. If you're not from a farming background, there's very rarely seemed, or to me, from my experience, to be a suggestion that you should get into agriculture. So it wasn't even on my radar. And I worked in a vet's and I absolutely loved it. I had my dream job. So I was a veterinary care assistant, basically a glorified receptionist, but whilst also working with animals and doing so much hands-on stuff as well. Yeah, absolutely loved it. Worked with amazing people, but there was no money in it. So I kind of knew that I probably wouldn't be able to stay doing it forever, with the mindset of wanting to move out as well. Matched with John, my now husband, on Tinder of all places. Yeah, he had some sheep. He bought his first sheep when he was 9. So I started helping him out with those as time went by, and he was growing his flock of sheep, and he had a couple of cattle as well. So I'd help him out at the weekends and when I wasn't working, and then spend a bit more time and a bit more time. And then eventually I left my job at the vets and got a job in a supermarket because they paid me more, and then
Uh-huh.
had more time to be able to spend on the farm. And then eventually quit that job and went and worked doing lambing for other farmers and just general work all over the place, but a lot more farming. Bought my own sheep, and then in 2021, my husband and we moved up to Lancashire to farm full time. So that's kind of how I got into it. It's been a bit of a whirlwind of the last 10 years, but yeah, it's been great.
Absolutely. Can I ask how old you are?
I am 28.
Wow. Okay. So it's good. So quite a journey from like the age of 18, just falling in love with someone and having a mutual love of animals to where you are now.
Yeah, and it's like particularly in the last 5 years, I've had to learn a huge amount because I was only part-time farming, and we've got pigs in that time. We've got a lot more cattle, a lot more sheep. And we've also gone from farming in the south of England in Sussex to farming in the northwest of England in
Yeah.
Lancashire. That is two very, very different things. Different climate. We're now on a hill farm, whereas we were on a lowland farm. Different breeds, different everything. It just even down to the quality of the grazing and the grass is
Yeah.
so much new stuff to learn. So yeah, it's been a lot of a learning curve, and we're still on it for sure.
And for John, was it such a big I mean, I'm assuming therefore that he does come from a farming background.
To some degree, John comes from a farming background, but his parents aren't farmers, but he has got family members that are, and he was like brought up around agriculture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really sure if he counts as first generation farmer or not because
Yeah.
his parents weren't, so it's skipped a few generations. But yeah, he's always been brought up agriculturally. So say he bought his first sheep when he was 9, and then has had sheep ever since, and he's just turned 30, so he's 30 years old with 21 years experience of running a business.
It's funny, this subject keeps coming up, whether you're in farming, and obviously probably I'm more conscious of it than ever because that's exactly what I'm attempting to do from coming outside of farming to trying to learn it at the tender age of 58. So it's it's a bit of a mad journey. But I think on balance, the people that I've spoken to, they're really encouraging to bring in people with outside perspectives and different life experiences. Of course, you're at a disadvantage from a technical or cultural standpoint, if you like, but there's a real openness. I haven't met anybody that's looked down their nose at me as if to say you're not qualified or why are you asking those dumb questions. They, by and large, everybody wants to share their experience and help you along.
Agreed. I think if you present as willing and keen, it
Mm.
goes such a long way. If you just turn up and you're just going to cause pain and be in the way, then it's quite difficult for farmers, I think, to be able to put their time and their effort, especially when time is so precious and farmers at certain points of the year in particular are just so busy
Mm.
that it is really difficult if they're going to put their time and effort into helping somebody learn the ropes. But to be honest, as long as you're keen and you actually are interested in it, farmers are so passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
They are so passionate. I've never met a more passionate. They're so passionate about farming that they make it almost their entire personality.
Yeah.
If I go out somewhere, I want people to know that I'm a farmer. There's like agricultural clothing.
Mm.
There's like certain brands. There's also certain things like so like if farmers typically wear shorts, there's like a whole style of clothes that
Yeah.
only agricultural people would probably ever wear. And it's because they're so proud of what they do and they just want the world to know that they're agricultural.
Yeah,
And, I think
uniforms
that is
farming.
amazing.
So, having met John, and what was the system that John was running when you two got together?
So we just used to rear them either all the way to being fat stock. So we were mainly just doing lambs at the time. So we'd have fat stock that we would just sell either in the auction, or we had a friend that runs like a butchery wholesale business. So sometimes we'd sell to him. But most of the time we would sell stores in the auction. And then when we moved up to Lancashire, we were just having to sell everything in the auction. We just didn't have the contacts around us, and we just didn't know anybody really. We had just moved up there just purely because there was a farm for rent, and we'd spent the last 2 years looking for a farm to rent, and we managed to be successful in getting the tenancy there.
Yeah,
So it wasn't that we were moving up to be closer to anybody. So we moved up and we thought, we're going to have to sell in the auction. That's the only way that we can make this work. I had previously sold a few lamb boxes to the public. However, that was me just driving to their house and hand delivering it to local people.
yeah,
But living in the middle of nowhere now in Lancashire, I didn't think that that was really possible. And again, having no contacts, no nothing, we just didn't really know what we were doing. So we were just selling in the auction and we weren't getting a good price, and it was really terrible. And some things we were selling and it wasn't even covering the cost of production, which
mm,
is just ridiculous. But in farming, I think people think, oh, that must be such a rarity. But
mm,
we would go weeks and weeks for every single thing that we sold was below what it cost us to produce.
yeah,
And we couldn't hold on to it any longer because we just didn't have the money to be able to pay the bills to keep staying in business.
yeah,
So we didn't heat our home for the first time, like the first 2 years that we lived up in Lancashire, we didn't have enough money to heat our house. And I'm not just saying like we just, we only put it on a little bit. Like our house was like 9, 10, 11 degrees. It was so
yeah.
cold. And, it got to the point where we had to contact our ABI. They gave us money basically to buy food at one point. It was so bad. And we needed to do something, otherwise we were going to end up going bankrupt, basically.
Did you think
And
about
my mum,
quitting at that point?
oh yeah, I mean, I still do all the time. I think any farmer's probably lying if they don't say that. They think, why am I doing this at times? Because things go wrong all the time. We're dealing with nature. You
Yeah,
know, you're dealing with a drought, for example. You think, why on earth are we doing this? Why are we battling Mother Nature to try and produce food? And in previous years more so than now, thankfully, but a lot of people just didn't have any sort of appreciation for the farmers producing the food. And I would imagine anyone listening to this does care, but I think you can all probably understand that there was a huge amount of the general population, and still is now, but thankfully it's smaller. But they just didn't care at all,
yeah.
about where their food came from or anything. But so we just kept doing it.
I think about this a lot because I was farming agriculture. The topic was in the back of my head. It was some subconscious, right? But living where I was, it wasn't a built up city, but it was suburbia or whatever. And it wasn't front of mind, of course, because other things are, right? Your day to day worries are on top of you. And so now I live in an area where I'm surrounded. Look, open the curtains and it's straight in front of me. And I'm immersed in it through doing this. So I try to think about how we get that message across, how it becomes front of mind for people who aren't surrounded, but who don't see the cue every day, the visual cue every day. And I suppose you can't move in agriculture at the moment without the subject of Clarkson's Farm coming up, which has done just such a massive amount to bring it home in an entertaining way to the issues that are going on in farming.
Yeah, Clarkson's Farm, from my perspective at least, and pretty much every farmer I've ever spoken to. In fact, I can't think of a single farmer that would disagree, but Clarkson's Farm has massively supported
Yeah,
the industry, not just in raising awareness about specific situations, but also, as you say, just by bringing it more into the forefront of people's thought process and thinking and challenging what they previously may have just accepted,
yeah,
and just making sure, well, actually, are the farmers being paid fairly? We're talking about the fact that we were earning £1.14 an hour for the work we were doing on the farm when we were selling to supermarkets. That
Mm,
is just not okay. I was having to work in a supermarket to earn money to keep the farm going, whilst full-time farming when we moved up to Lancashire, and
mm,
we were still dealing with the fact that we still couldn't afford to buy food. We were having to decide whether we bought food for our animals or food for ourselves, whilst working 7 days a week. And in a job where it's not like we're making a bit of tap that nobody even wants. We're making
mm,
food. Every single person on the planet wants food, needs food, and
mm.
we still just couldn't make the numbers make sense to make it viable financially.
Yeah,
And then I think a lot of people just aren't even aware that as farmers, when you're selling your produce, unless you are like us now, selling direct to the public, most farmers, they either sell through an auction or to a supermarket or a buyer, but the buyer sets the price. As farmers, we don't get to say, well, this
mm,
sheep has cost me X amount to produce, and I would like to sell it for this amount,
mm.
like
Yeah,
most people do. As farmers, someone comes to you and they say, I will buy that sheep for that amount of money. If you don't like it, you can try and find someone else, but realistically, nowhere else exists
yeah,
unless you go and find the customer base, which we've thankfully managed to find, but it's years of work, it really is. But social media is probably the biggest thing I think for farming. Is as much as Clarkson Farm's done an incredible job, just having farmers actually realizing how useful and powerful social media is as a tool to talk
yeah.
about the industry. It's amazing. It absolutely is. I can post a video and you might say, oh, it only get 200 views. You might feel like, and a lot of people would turn their nose up at 200 views. That's 200 people
Oh,
that have just thought about farming.
I'll give my arm for that at the moment.
Yeah, like exactly. Like that, if what you get one view, that is someone that is now thinking about farming. You
Yeah,
get 10,000 views on a TikTok post. Like TikTok is thankfully, an amazing platform for getting new people to see your content. And that's how we started. And we're now got over 300,000 followers on TikTok. That is 300,000 people that have thought about food at some point and farming at some point because they saw a random videos that I've put online. Like, how
yeah.
crazy is that? And farmers are starting to realize it, and I'm so here for it. I'm so here for it because we need people to understand where the food comes from, and the only way to explain that is by telling people.
So when did you change I'm gonna get in the van and go out and deliver a few meat boxes to some loyal people who understand, to in industrializing the process of getting meat boxes out there nationally? When did that change take place?
So when we were in Sussex, we were hand delivering locally. And when I didn't even have a van, it was literally me driving around in my Corsa and this on the back seats in boxes. And I would do maybe 3 orders in a month, maybe nothing in a month, maybe up to 6, I think was my busiest. It really wasn't anything that was amazing, but I really enjoyed it. So it wasn't,
Yeah,
it wasn't about earning more money for the farm. Our farm at that point was not profitable in the slightest, and we didn't run it as a business. It was more of something that we were just passionate about and a hobby farm, so to speak.
mm,
And but when we moved up to Lancashire after years of searching for a farm to move to actually do it as our proper jobs, that was when we made the change because we lived in the middle of nowhere. We couldn't just go out and deliver to the local people because my closest neighbour is like a mile away.
yeah,
And that's just another farmer that also has sheep. Why would they buy a lamb box off of me?
yeah,
So, yeah, my mum suggested that we should try posting it out. And it was something I looked into in the past, but decided that it was a terrible idea and no one would want meat delivered to them. Anyway, it turns out that they do.
So talk me
So,
through
yeah.
the logistics of that, because another farmer I'd spoken to about 6 months ago said it's not an easy thing to set up. They
Yeah, it's
were
not
kind of,
easy.
no. So how did you go about working out the best way to to transport it, the delivery time frame, the storage, is it's sent out frozen, presumably. How did
Not
you
even
work through
chilled.
that?
Yeah. So we saw a company online called Wool Cool Packaging. So they use sheep's wool to cool everything. Yeah, basically, it's an
Yeah,
amazing insulator. It keeps hot things hot and cold things cold. So if basically we have a cardboard box, we put sheep's wool liners on the inside of that box made by Wool Cool, and then we put gel ice packs in there. But we originally started with water, but the gel ones stay colder for longer. And then just basically package up the box with as little amount of air in there as possible. So we have different sized boxes depending on how much someone's ordered. And then send it out. We just send it chilled most of the time. Occasionally we might have something that we might send frozen, but not really. It's just if it was left over from the week before, then we'll
yeah,
just chuck it in the freezer. But normally we'd just send it out the next week. Um, with like butcher it fresh, if that makes sense, if you know what I mean. So
yeah,
yeah, so people literally just order from us on our website online, and then when they get to the checkout, it tells them when it will be delivered, which at the moment I think is 3 weeks in advance, which works really well for us. But I
yeah,
do also understand it's a long time for people to wait, so it's something that we're working on reducing the wait time. Um, and then yeah, literally we package it up or butcher it, package it up, label it and everything, pop it in the box, and then we use a 24-hour courier service. So we use APC overnight, and to be fair, they're very good. There's always problems. There is problems. Don't get me wrong, and I'll be lying if I said that there was nothing that ever went wrong. But we have probably about 1%, because we're very lucky with our local depot being so hot on things, but
uh-huh.
about 1%, and it's not covered by the courier. So that is if it gets delayed
Yeah,
or broken, like once they put a pallet fork through a box and obviously
yeah,
like rip the whole thing to shreds, or left one out in the rain, the cardboard box just disintegrates. And that's on us, unfortunately. We put that bill for the refund or replacement for the customer, but it is rare,
mm,
and it's probably still a damn sight cheaper than running a farm shop,
yeah,
which we do not have. We do not really want. As much as it'd be lovely to get to meet our customers, I just don't have the time for it, not alongside the farm, and hats off to anybody that does.
yeah.
Equally, I do spend all that same time probably just making videos online instead. That fits in more with my life. I can just stop a job, quickly film something, or, if my daughter's napping upstairs, I can be downstairs, film something. Whereas if you've got a farm shop, you've got to be there.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work for me at all.
Unless you go down the vending machine route. And
Oh, yeah.
when I was discovering the farmers in my local areas, because I wanted to go and meet them, I've told this story on a different episode, but I really was nervous about just rocking up on a farm and saying, "Hello, I want to talk to you about farming." and
Mm.
and when the first two on this Saturday afternoon, it's like my other half had sort of said, "You're going to do it, right?" And I force you to do it. So the first two were completely pants because they either weren't where I thought they were, I think it was. I completely turned up at the wrong farm. Then the second one, it was like, well, it was a farm shop, but it was one girl running the operation. She wasn't the farmer. And then I thought, oh, I've got to find another one. And it was about 10 minutes away. And I got there all excited, beautiful drive up to the farm, right in the folds of the moors and everything. And I arrive and it's a completely automated vending machine run. So there's no bugger there to talk to at all. However, having said that's a new sheepfold farm. I have come to know the farmers there, and they're absolutely lovely. And their business case of operating the vending service of frozen chiller cabinets and that, and also they've got some other diversification on farm as well. So yeah, it came good in the end. But I get what
Yeah,
you mean.
vending
That's
machines are brilliant. They really are brilliant because it frees up the farmer's time, but also allows them to optimize the amount that they can sell their product for. And it's not even necessarily a high profit margin. I think a lot of people think, oh, well, the prices are always really high when you buy from either butchers or farmers direct, the price is always high. They hike it up. We see that in my comment section all the time.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's that you're so used to buying food that has been produced on such a massive scale that they can keep their profit margin. That's not how I farm. That's not how most people want their meat to be farmed.
Yeah.
So if you want to have it farmed where it's a normal sized farm,
Yeah.
so to speak, then you have to pay extra for that because economies of scale isn't then working in the favour of the customer, in effect,
Yeah.
or the supermarket. But also, you have to make sure that the farmer is actually just getting paid fairly.
Yeah.
You know, we're not asking for crazy amounts of profit at all. All we're asking for is to be able to earn a living and to be paid fairly for the work that we're doing. Like we have fair trade fair trade coffee in the supermarkets. Okay, well, how about some fair trade milk in the supermarkets right now? British milk, where British farmers are being paid fairly and above the cost of production, because there is a huge amount of milk. Most of the milk in the supermarkets, I would say, is being sold at whatever price it is in the supermarket shelf, but it's being bought off of that farmer below the cost of production. I spoke to a dairy farmer a couple of days ago. He's losing £20,000 a month.
Yeah.
That just leaves his bank, and all he's doing is hanging on and hoping, in effect, he's hoping that enough other dairy farmers will run out of money in the bank or be able to not be able to borrow enough more extra money and they'll go out of business. That's in effect what he's hoping for. He doesn't want that on a personal level, but from his business point of view, the likes of the milk buyers, like, for example, not saying, I don't know who he's with, but Arla, Muller, First Milk, that sort of thing, that's buying the milk, they are wanting dairy farmers to go out of business. And instead of just making the supermarkets charge people more for milk, just we're still important. Honestly, it just blows my mind. Like, why would you want people to go out of business to deal with it? If you've got loads of it being produced, either drop the price on the supermarket shelf and run adverts, get people to buy more milk. AHDB ran an ad campaign about getting people to drink more milk, and it worked. It shows that advertising does increase the consumption of milk. So why is no one doing it now when we have an oversupply of milk and dairy farmers going out of business literally every week, just here in the UK, let alone elsewhere in the world? It's mad.
Yeah, it's a bit arse about face, to be honest. I think so. To the point around the cost of buying directly from a farmer through a vending machine or farm shop, or like yourself, distribution nationally. I think at the end of the day, I eat probably less meat these days, but I'm aiming to buy better quality. So so I enjoy it more. It's a bit more of a special occasion. There's no way on earth that I would cut out meat from my diet. I love it too much. So I'm not doing it for any other reason other than to just make it more enjoyable when I do eat meat, or try different cuts. So whereas, my local butcher sources pretty much locally what he can. So that's another way of looking at it. But it's that age-old thing of convenience, isn't it? So if I've got to go to the supermarket for loo rolls and washing up liquid, then also it's easier for me to just go along the meat aisle and take it out the cabinet in the meat aisle. And that's the thing.
It is. I can't compete with that as a farmer, and the supermarkets aren't interested in offering what we offer. The quality difference, if you've ever eaten from a butcher's compared to supermarket meat, it could have come from the exact same animal. It's not that the animals are necessarily better in butchers, and they'll try and buy top spec, but we don't aim for any specification. We don't grade our lambs. They do get graded, but we don't care about it at all. We just want something that's going to taste really good. And that taste comes from not just the way it's farmed, because that's across the board, whether you're buying from a supermarket, a butcher's, or direct from farmers, is how it is handled once it is a carcass. So if you're going to be injecting it with water or tumbling it in water, so supermarkets sometimes will tumble meat, so they basically just churn it around with some water and it just absorbs the water weight.
Oh, really?
No one really wants to be buying that. They say that they do it for enhancing flavour, but not being funny, if you had it where meat from a butcher's where it's not been done and meat from a supermarket where it has been done, nobody is saying at all that they prefer the meat from the supermarket because it has been pumped up with water and you've paid chicken price for water. Like this, it's
Yeah.
not ideal, but it makes it look cheaper on the surface. It is realistically their aim, isn't it?
Yeah.
It makes you think that, oh, that chicken breast, well, that's 500 grams for whatever, but it's actually 400 and something grams of chicken. And then you've also got however much of water. And that doesn't even have to go on the label if it's up to a certain amount. There's so much. And I think Clarkson's Farm is highlighting some things a bit like that to some degree, but then it's more highlighting farming, and then the farmers on social media can then tell the fuller
Amplify
story.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, we can add the details. He gets people interested in what we do and finding out that actually farming isn't just an old man with a straw hat on. It's not. It's that a third of farmers in the UK are female. A lot of people don't know that. I was shocked when I found that out. And when you look at unpaid farm helpers,
Yeah.
including that, it's over 50%. So
Yeah, that is an interesting point. I don't think I would have stopped to think about how many, what the proportion of male to female farmers is.
But it's a very easy thing to not see the women in agriculture so much. And maybe they're not working full time just as a farmer, but quite a lot of them are. I know some amazing female farmers, and I feel like we can bring a new approach to certain areas of farming as well. Like John and I both work quite well together because we both see things differently. So then we can discuss and basically fight it out. Well, not an actual fight, but we fight out to see who wins and who actually has the right idea. Because as someone coming into farming, I also view things differently to John, where he's been around agriculture his whole life. There's so many different approaches to come, and I think it's really important for people to understand that every farm is completely different, even between us and our next door neighbour. We're wildly different. The way that we farm, we've got different breeds, we've got different bank balances in terms of he doesn't have a mortgage or rent to pay because maybe he's been there for 50 years or maybe he's the third generation, whereas we've got rent to pay. And then we've also weren't in the right schemes with the government for the support. So when we first moved up to Lancashire, we didn't have any government support at all. So that was, it adds like a whole new layer. There's so much peace that comes from actually already being in the cycle of farming. And I think when you're in it, it's easy to forget that some people aren't in that cycle yet. And it is 10 times harder for those people that aren't in it. Yeah.
Who did you go to for the advice around just the farming structure, how to structure your business? Have you spent time with consultants or with any of the charities support networks to try and understand how can we do this better?
I went to I can't think what it's called. I think it's the Farmer Network. We went to an event and they were talking about an organisation basically that supports farmers, and they were specifically looking at next gen farmers. And I went along to one of the meetings for it with the Farmer Network, and I got a lot of contacts through that, not just of other young farmers in our local area, many of which I still talk to now and see regularly, but the amount of people that were able to point us in the right direction of things. And part of what came with that was also a bit of funding with somebody to support us. So we met with a lady called Andrea Gardner, which if anybody knows Andrea Gardner, you'll know what a legend she is and how she's just incredibly knowledgeable. I would definitely recommend trying to get hold of her for a podcast, but she's a very, very, very busy lady. But she works and still works at Myerscough College, and she helped us with a lot of our grant schemes and things because we didn't really know what we were doing. We'd never done any grants before we moved up. We didn't have, literally had not a clue in the world how it all worked. And it was all changing at the time as well. And we were still partly going through COVID, but coming out the end of it. And everything was all very strange when we moved, and the cost of living crisis hit and the price of everything went up ridiculous amounts. And obviously we hadn't budgeted for that. So we were in a really tricky spot. And I remember Andrea Gardner came round and she came in for a meeting and she went to take her coat off, and I said, don't bother because the house is freezing. So she just put her hat on. And we sat around the table, and she was amazing support for us and put us in the right direction of so many people. Robert Burrows, who's now retired, but he was brilliant. And literally the people around us, they obviously could see how much we were in effect clueless but desperate to make it work. And yeah, we just basically spoke to people, and because we couldn't afford to buy food, it sounds really silly looking back on it, because surely we could have done something, but we really couldn't. And our vets, for example, would advertise that they were doing a free evening session, free evening meal provided, learning about, I don't know, worming sheep. So off John and I would go to this free event with free evening warm meal provided, and we'd learn loads of stuff. We'd see people because we didn't have any friends or family up in Lancashire. And we'd speak to people, we were warm for the evening, and then we'd go home and get straight into bed. And we were all tucked up warm with a warm meal. And, I think there's a lot to be said for the support network of people that maybe didn't think that they didn't know us, but they could identify that we definitely needed a lot of support.
They could see you were genuine, and you're laughing about it, and it's amazing. And you've always got this the widest grin. But it's a sad set of circumstances to be in that. Yeah, and your relationship with John must be incredible. The pair of you just dug in, and we need to find a way round this. But as I suspect that your passion for it and your drive and your enthusiasm, just people warmed to that and wanted to see how they could help.
And there is a lot of support out there, but it is very hard to find if you don't have the people around you. And I think a lot of farmers go through what we went through, with financial struggles, maybe not to the same level, maybe even worse. And they don't talk about it because they're embarrassed, or they don't want people to know how much they're struggling. But the reality is, if you do talk about it, people will be able to say, well, have you actually seen this? We'd never heard of our ABI before all of this. I'd sort of kind of seen it, but I had no clue. If you'd asked me what they did, I couldn't have told you other than they were a charity in agriculture. They had like a whole fund for people just to support them. At the moment, they've got one for school uniforms to support farmers buying school uniforms for their kids. They know, and they completely understand with no judgment that there's farmers out there that are really, really struggling. And when I rang them up, I was absolutely bawling my eyes out down the phone because I felt like an absolute failure. But the reality is, I think I would have been, the only reason I would have been a failure is if I hadn't picked up the phone and said, we can't afford to buy food, can you help me? We would have gone out of business. We would have ended up just putting all of the sheep in the auction and going back to working our normal previous jobs that we had before. And that would have been a failure because we wouldn't have actually learned anything from the experience. We would have just lost all of the money that we'd put into it and gone home with our heads hanging. And I think the reality is they're there to support you. They're desperate to support you. I'm desperate to support farmers that are struggling or wanting to get into what we do. I think people will feel bad about messaging me. They're like, oh, I was just wondering what packaging you use or something. It's fine. I want farmers to do what we do because it works, and we have more customers than we can handle. We're sold out weeks in advance because there are so many people that want to support farmers, but they just don't know how to because
Yeah.
there's not enough farmers doing it.
Fabulous. My next question really is around, do you have any other ideas? You're ram-packed now with this explosion of new business. Do your thoughts go towards what next? What other ideas you might do around diversification or just around the core business?
So obviously with the Meat Box family, we are very, very busy. We already buy from other farmers at fair prices as well. We don't have like official partnerships or anything like that. It's not like an official cooperative because I feel like with that there's just more paperwork, which then just puts the price up even more for the sake of just ticking boxes and red tape. So we just buy animals off of other farmers at a fair price, and then we'll do all of the rest of the work.
Yeah.
And so I'd quite like to upscale a bit because I also acknowledge that a lot of farmers can't do what we do. They don't have the time, maybe they don't have the skill set, maybe they just hate dealing with the public, which I can totally understand. Like, it's a certain group of people are more than happy to deal with the public. I love dealing with the public. Other people, like John, not so much. He works on a farm for a reason, and that's mainly so he doesn't have to deal with the public. And so if we can sell more through what we're doing, but also supporting other farmers at the same time, then that's a win for agriculture from my point of view.
Yeah.
It's also obviously a win for us because we then still have happier customers having to wait less time for their meat to arrive with them. So that would be quite good, but we're fairly limited on space and staffing and all of that. So that's our current hurdle that we're trying to navigate, but we'll get there because determination is what gets you there.
Who does your butchery? I presume it's not new.
Well, it's a bit complicated because it's changing at the moment, but currently the butchery is outsourced. But we have our own butchery unit, but it's not big enough, so we outgrew it. So somebody else just deals with it all, and it's much easier. But equally, it does mean that we can't add new products and things, and we're just limited on what they can do for us. And they deal with other butchers. They don't deal with end consumer. So we lack a bit of finesse in certain areas. So that's something that we would really like to get on top of. Like the meat will taste lovely, but like the packaging's just not, it's not pretty. So I would really like to work on that as well. But to be able to do that it's not just a case of, oh, just do it. It's thousands and thousands of pounds, but also hundreds of hours that we struggle to find at the best of time. So this is our quiet time of year, and it's it's still very busy.
And how are you doing against your personal target of achieving 12 speaking engagements for the year?
We're doing all right.
This being one of them.
Yeah, this is one of them. I did a podcast yesterday with Walker, our packaging company. So that was brilliant. I've got a Great Yorkshire show that I'll be speaking at. So that's major. I've got a festival that I'm speaking at. That's Meetup Festival in August. So yeah, we're now up to either booked or already done 9 things out of the 12 that I'm aiming for the year. But I'm also critically aware that by the time September hits, we're taking Christmas orders, and that is it for the rest of the year. I've barely got enough time to breathe. So
we need to get you
I've got to get them in now.
July, August, and September. That's it. Get your 3 more in there.
Yeah, but we'll get there. Determination. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. So, do you get nervous about the sort of speaking appearances? A podcast are different from standing up on the stage and telling a story, or being filmed for doing that. But does any of it faze you, or is it just there's just so much energy coming from you that I just think you can just point and shoot her at any particular problem or topic, and she'll just be happy to talk about?
I'm always happy to talk. I've always been known as a chatterbox, but podcasts I do find a lot less stressful. It feels just like I'm just having a chat. This is no different to me doing a live stream, or in fact, it's better than a live stream, because if I mess it up, you can edit it out. Whereas on a live stream, that's it, isn't it? But the speaking events where I stand in front of people, I do find them a bit daunting, but that's why I'm trying to push myself out of my comfort zone the most. I think I'd done one podcast before I set myself this challenge. So that podcast was really daunting to me. But actually, now that I've done a few of them and I've just got a bit more comfortable with how they work, it doesn't really bother me so much now, which is great. But obviously, the public speaking in front of people,
that's people's generally, that's their biggest fear.
I'm not even, for me, it's not about standing in front of people, because I'm not so worried about that. It's, for me, the after effect of when I sit in the car and I drive home from that event, and then I just overthink every single word that came out my mouth.
100%. I agree with you. I was asked to do 5 minutes at an event recently, and Bev, do you mind just doing 5 minutes about what you're doing, how you did this, and why you came along to this today? I'm like,
do you do it all the time?
I talk for a living, right? And I did it. It's a complete blur. I could see a few people smiling at me, and of course, the thing to remember is that people always want you to succeed. They're not looking for you to crash and burn. And I sat back down, and the rest of the afternoon into the evening, I'm like, crikey, what did I say? Did that come across really well? God, I must have thought I was the right idiot. And I spoke to one of the organisers, because we went out for dinner in the evening, and like, John, did it come across okay? Because I was a bit. It's like, yeah, it's perfect. But that whole overthinking of, I'm confident to do it, but I will self-critique for the rest of the day. It's awful.
Yeah, and because my brain works at a million mile an hour, I'm so bad at forgetting the question that somebody asked me, and I'll end up going off on a million tangents, which to me is like a really bad thing. But some people find that really nice to listen to, because it makes it flow a lot better sometimes. But I feel like it's the complete opposite of that.
Well, I don't want you overanalyzing or overthinking about this episode when we switch off. But
that's all right. I'm straight into something else. So
good. That's the best
thing to do. That is the best thing. Just keep your brain busy. Like, same with yesterday. I got my husband picked me up from the podcast, which was in Stafford. So it was 100 miles away from home, but he picked me up straight into something else. And no problem. I'm busy enough now, which is when I had to drive myself home from a talk. Oh, it was awful. Late at night as well, so I couldn't call a friend and have them on Bluetooth or whatever. Just me and my own thoughts. I think it's really normal, isn't it? But that's why I want to challenge myself. And I think it's really important, because I've got a story that a lot of people will either relate to or learn something from. And that's not because I'm special, that's because I'm normal, and that everybody has that story. But I think it's really important that if there's farmers that are struggling, understand that it's absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. Like, there is so many farmers. Once you explain to people, like, people obviously approach us more because they know that we get it. Because publicly, I have told people that I can't afford to heat my house publicly in front of thousands of people. I've cried and been, I used to do live streams every night, desperate for orders of the meat boxes, because that was the difference between us literally being able to eat food and not. And people would watch me in my house. They could see my breath in my house because it was so cold, with my beanie hat on. And so I think that makes us more approachable to other farmers that are struggling. So we see it, and there is thousands of farmers that are not financially where they want to be, not mentally where they want to be, not physically where they want to be. Your farm's held together with baler twine, that's fine, so's mine. And nobody's farm is perfect. Nobody's farm's how they want it to be, but the reality is, to get it perfect takes millions of pounds, and we probably still wouldn't be happy at that. So yeah, it's just understanding that we're all very, very normal, and it is just really tough for a lot of farmers at the moment.
I think your story is inspiring, Eden. I really do. And I'm over the moon that it's turned a corner and that you're now a bit too busy with a nice problem to have. Where can
Yeah.
people go to find your details?
So to follow us on social media, we've got Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and we're under the Meatbox family on all of those platforms. And then to order or see what we sell, so we do normal meat boxes, lamb, beef, pork, and mutton. We also do meat raffles as well, but you can get to it all through our website. So if you just Google the Meatbox family, it should come up as, meatboxfamily.co.uk is our website. And there's never any pressure to order from us because I totally understand that it's not for everybody, but even just buying from another farmer, maybe that would be brilliant. Or even just one thing, if you can just buy some eggs from an honesty box down the road, and that money actually goes into producing that food.
Yeah.
And I just think that's magical, really. And it's such a missed opportunity in so many places, but people are getting there. They are buying.
Very important. I'm saving up for to buy half a cow off of you, but my question is, how big a chest freezer do I need?
For half a cow, you would want a normal size, but like the big normal size. You don't need a commercial one. For the whole cow, you need a commercial size chest freezer, I would say. There is the literage of how much you need litre wise. I think it's 240 litres maybe, but that means nothing to me. But I put it in the description on the website. But it's not really visual, is it? So I need to work it out what that actually means. But it's quite a lot. It comes in like 6 or 7 big boxes.
Yeah.
And I mean big boxes.
I know.
It's heavy. It's 120 kilos minimum.
That's incredible. Oh, it's an absolute joy to talk to you, Eden. I really love what you've been able to achieve, and I'm sure you're going to go on to achieve much, much more. But yeah, it is inspiring. It's been a tough journey, but I wish you the best of luck. You and John the best of luck with what you're doing. I think it's terrific.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you very much. And it's another one ticked off on the list of my 12 things to do.
I'm glad to have been of service. All right, you take care, my love. Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Thanks to Eden for sharing her story today. If you'd like to find out more about her Meatbox delivery service for all your lamb, mutton, beef or pork needs, check out meatboxfamily.co.uk. In fact, stop what you're doing right now and head on over to their page, where you could enter this month's free raffle to win a special barbecue meat hamper worth £55. That'll be drawn on their live stream this coming Saturday, 27th of June. Well, that's all for this week. Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed it, I'd love you to follow or subscribe or write a quick review. It really helps me to keep bringing you stories from our great farming sector, as well as other characters living and working in the countryside. For now, though, if it is past your bedtime, well, perhaps it's time to turn in. Until next time.